Welcome, everyone. This is Cosmic Conversation, and I'm your host for Tuesday nights, Glenda Dawson. Want to welcome everyone, and for those that see this later, um, please do remember to share so that others can also um, receive the benefit of these interviews, of these meetings, of these presentations, because you never know what is going to bring healing or an awakening to someone. So let's continue sharing, sharing, and sharing. Today I have Aurora Belcea. I always mispronounce that. I'm sure she's going to correct me. That's okay because
No,
I'm
that
not.
was perfect.
Oh, hey, I
Nice.
got it.
Yeah,
Yes.
you
and
got it.
Kevin Briggs. There are beautiful people who I have spoken many times with. I've seen them in other presentations. And I'm not really going to introduce them too much because you guys can read the description, the bios. But I'm just going to let Kevin and Aurora take it from here. Go ahead, Kevin. How'd you get here?
Well, that's a big question. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for inviting Aurora. Our paths crossed some years ago, and it's continuing to expand. So, where do I start? I suppose just a brief introduction. I'm from the UK. I was a police officer in the UK, and then I retired from there, and I moved to Florida with my wife, and then started as a realtor, been selling real estate for about 20 years. So, and before I became a police officer, I was a technician at the university. So, average jobs, just a regular guy. But at the same time, I had these extraordinary experiences. And they started when I was 8 years old, when I was taking a bath at home. Two beings materialized in my bathroom, frightened me to death at the time. They were speaking telepathically to one another, which I could understand. They were talking about me, not to me. They're one male, one female, both extremely attractive, both with long blonde shoulder length hair, deep blue eyes, wearing a tight fitting jumpsuit type garment. And as I say, they were talking about me telepathically. And I remember the what was said to this day. The names are Ort and D. They are Arcturians. They are fifth dimensional beings from Andromeda. They are guides and teachers. That's their job description, as it were. But as I said, it frightened me to death at the time. But D said to Art, "Is this the boy?" And Art said, "Yes, this is a boy." And then D questioned him and said, "Are you sure this is a boy?" He said, "Yes, I'm sure." And she said, "But look at him. He's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified. And Art said, "No, this is a boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation, and then they left. As I said, I was so frightened. I didn't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering. My mother came in to see why I was still in the bathtub. I told her about the two beings, and she said it was just my imagination. It wasn't. I'm now 71. I'm still in contact with them. And Art and Dee were true. Art was true to his word. He's educated me. He's shown me many wondrous things of what we can do as humans and given me an understanding of consciousness and how it can be utilized as a conduit for communication, for travel, for healing, for education, for creation and co-creation, which is one of the most important part of consciousness, I think. And because of that, I'm able to communicate with them and others at their level of consciousness. And then at 14, I had a paper round in the UK, and every time I left the home, a UFO would appear above the house, and then a second would appear, follow me around the paper round, and then I always felt a presence. I was always uh, sensitive to the frequencies that surround us. And I said, I know you're there. Can you show yourself?" And two small beings appeared from behind the hedge, behind the wall. To cut a long story short, uh, I went with them to a mothership, and there I was introduced to eight beings. The first two beings being Art and D, and then Anna, Zark, Chika, Tag, Orla, and Ra. Ra's the leader. He's Anunnaki. So I was introduced to them. At that time, I thought I was just a human specimen. I know that's not the case now. I'm still in contact with all eight to this day. And a few years ago, I met Aurora at a meeting in Orlando, and our paths crossed, and those paths are still growing to this day. And now Aurora has contact with the Council of Eight. There are other people I know that have contact with the Council of Eight and with Orton D. People are writing about it, people are talking about it. So really, they're reaching out to individuals and groups now. So I'll hand over to Aurora because her story is absolutely fascinating.
Well, I'm originally from Romania. I moved here about 40 years ago. I don't have the childhood experiences that Kevin does, although I never felt like I fit in, and I felt like I was constantly being followed and watched. I never did see anybody following me or watching me. I just had this feeling. It was odd. In 2014, I was in a car accident, and it just, pretty much left me disabled. And I was having a really hard time. One day, when I was having a particularly difficult time, I felt this nudge, I don't know who or what it was. I had to go and get in my little meditation room and sit down to meditate. And as soon as I closed my eyes, this unbelievable, overwhelming wave of compassionate love just poured over me. And I was very, very surprised. I did not expect that. And then this being, I was afraid to open my eyes, okay? I was afraid of what I might see. It was really intense. And this being told me a couple of times that what I was going through was not a punishment. This is not a punishment. And then he also said something that I still don't understand to this day. It was telepathic, so it wasn't the exact words, but something along the lines of the big guy is pleased with your progress. And I didn't know what that meant. And then after that, I got this whole shower of love thing again that just left me in tears, and then he was gone. And at the time, I had no idea who that was. I thought maybe it was an angel. This was long, long before I had any idea about extraterrestrials or anything like that. I had no interest at the time. And fast forward, about, I don't know, 10 years, and I started to have some experiences. I became interested in ETs. I started to, explore that topic, and I ended up in Orlando at a meeting where I saw Kevin. I'd never seen Kevin before. I had never read any of his books. I had no idea who he was, but I knew that I had to talk with him before I left there. And one thing led to another. And eventually, after we got to know each other, I realized that it was Ort who had approached me, 10 years before that, before I even knew Kevin or anything about the Council of Eight. And so once Kevin helped me to put things in perspective, I was able to, become more aware of the contact that I was having with the Council of Eight, especially with Ort. Dee, not so much, but especially with Ort and Chica and Zark. They were the three that I have most of my contact with. And the message that I got from Ort was that um, I was, I guess he was encouraging me to basically create artwork, portraits of these beings that I was connecting with and share them on social media because the way he put it is these beings, they use those portraits to project their own energy into our space. And I was wonderstruck by what happened once I started posting my drawings because people were responding in ways that I had never expected. So what Ort said was going to happen, that's exactly what happened. And so today I have drawings of the eight of them and Shiva in the Council of Eight. And maybe Kevin and I can share stories and I can put up
Yes.
the drawings. And I'm thinking maybe I'm going to show them in the order in which I actually drew them, because you'll be able to see how my skill actually evolved a little. By the way, I did not know how to draw. I mean, I drew stick figures until a couple of years ago. And I went to a C5 at a friend's house, and something happened to me there. And suddenly I was able to draw better than stick figures. And that's how this whole thing started. The first one from the Council of Eight is Zark. this guy has an amazing sense of humor. In fact, on the day when I was, can you see it okay? Can you see
Yes.
anything? Yeah, on the day when I started drawing him, I was actually not feeling all that great, and I liked, I liked drawing, so I decided to sit down and start just drawing a portrait and see what would come out. So I drew the face, of what seemed to me like an alien at the time, a gray, and then I started to draw the sunglasses. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And I went to erase them, and sure enough, in my mind, telepathically, it's like, no, 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 don't erase them. They make me look cool. So I didn't know who that was at the time. Eventually, I figured out that it was Zark because he has just a tremendous sense of humor. He popped this image in my mind's eye with this, rainbow beanie on top of his head, and I laughed out loud. He has an amazing sense of humor, and unlike other Grays that I've met, he has a lot of emotion. So it was a lot of fun hanging out with him and drawing his portrait. The light bulb in his hand is basically his message to us to lighten up. In order to become enlightened, you really got to lighten up on ourselves. And that's, pretty much his message. He's got on his T-shirt is a formula that the Council of Eight gave to Kevin, and I'm going to let him talk about that a little bit. But um, yeah, you know, Zark really, really came through as a
Mhm.
absolute character. And I really, really enjoyed hanging out with him. If I remember correctly, he's a propulsion systems engineer. So, aside from him having a great sense of humor, his job is like the exact opposite. You'd expect him to walk around with like a, pocket protector and the pencils and be very serious, but he's not. He's really quite a character. And I'm not the only one who's had, um, you know, the pleasure of enjoying some of his pranks. Kevin, what do you have to add about
Oh, okay.
Zark?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. He has a tremendous sense of humor, and he was the first one that I cracked a joke with him. And when I speak with him, I'll see like a TV screen in front of me. I get telepathic communication. It's like watching a TV screen. And then when I was speaking to him, the emotions of him came through the telepathic communication as well. So not only did I have the emotion communication, I can see them quite clearly, like watching a TV screen. But I feel so attached to them because it's most unusual for people to have that emotional attachment coming through with telepathic communication. But I also pointed out to Aurora that his hat is all the colors of the rainbow, and they use rainbows very often as portals. And I have many examples of that. So that was quite interesting. And then the equation on the t shirt is the equation for the void of consciousness. And at 17, I was taken to that void, the edge of that void, with art. I didn't understand it then. I do now. And that's part of the creation side, co creation side of timelines. And the void is not void as the name suggests, but it's full of infinite potential, full of infinite possibilities with intentions. And this is how the timelines are created. And when you understand that, then that we are the creators of our own timelines, but we can also co-create. And that's why we needed this information. We are co-creating the timeline of the reveal globally of our star family's presence. So this is a very important, I think, portrait that Aurora's written. And she's captured his sense of humor. I know he moves my wife's personal items around the home when he comes in. She'll put something down, she'll turn around and go back to pick it up, and he's moved it. And on one occasion, he lined all the shoes up in the master closet. And I asked him why he did that. And he said he liked teasing her. He thought it was funny, but there was a serious side to let her know that we are here, we are amongst you. So it's nice that they reach out to my wife as well now. And nice that they're obviously reaching out to Aurora as well, because I was at the same CE5 where a good friend of ours, Gary Bors, and he has a tremendous amount of contact. So really, they're reaching out, they're extending their communication with us through the Council of Eight, through the Exo Conscious community, which Aurora and I are a member of. So is Gary Bors and others, and they're reaching out to those as well. So yeah, And you're right, he is a propulsion. He's a mathematician, an engineer, and propulsion system. And I suspect he was the one. Oh, it was Aunt D that gave me this equation. I was given another equation for calculating the frequencies of consciousness in each dimension. And I suspect Zart gave me that equation. I don't know yet, but if anybody's interested in that equation, it's just been recently published in A Greater Reality by Ray Hernandez in volume 5. So if you're interested in that, but again, interesting that they give me these scientific equations, which I don't fully understand, but I know when I got the one for the calculating the frequencies of consciousness, I always ask for confirmation. And I said, look, you've just given me this equation. Can you show me a craft to confirm it's you? And a craft appeared immediately. I went inside to get my wife. We went outside. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 craft appeared, flew silently and slowly over our heads, changed direction by about 80 degrees, and then disappeared sequentially as they had arrived. So that was good confirmation for me. So I've no doubt about the communication, but the fact that, you know, Aurora is meeting with the same beings, getting more information and bringing them a persona, bringing part of their humanity, shall we say, to them, because they have characters. He has offspring. He has, I think, 2 offspring. I can't remember now, 3. They call them offspring, not children. But yeah, it's fascinating to get to know them. We are expanding our own collective consciousness, really. So yeah. So thank you for the drawing, Aurora. It's amazing,
Yeah.
and it encapsulates him tremendously.
Yeah. Actually, a big distinction between the way that Kevin experiences the Council of Eight and I do is that, as Kevin said, you know, you see them on a screen where I feel them. So what I draw is not necessarily what I see, it's the way that they feel to me. So, you know, that's the big distinction there. All right, let's see. Gonna stop sharing this one. And the next one that I drew was actually D. I was planning to draw Ort, but she sort of popped in and she decided it was going to be her turn and she wouldn't take no for an answer. So she actually told me that Ort could wait his turn. And she's really pragmatic. I mean, I didn't know that much about the Council of Eight when I made these drawings. And then later to hear Kevin tell the story about how Dee was telling, you know, was talking to Ort about how small Kevin was and uneducated. And I totally picked that up from her when I drew her. She's very no nonsense and very pragmatic, where Ort is much more emotional and loving. And I'm not saying she's not loving, she just has a very different feel to her. When I drew her, she insisted that I put the constellation Arcturus in the drawing. And I mean, not the constellation Boots and mark Arcturus in the drawing. And I had to take some creative liberty there to kind of include all the stars. But it was a big deal to her that I included that constellation. And some people who have seen this drawing have said that the way that, you know, the stars are connected, it looked to them like light language, or, you know, symbols that actually represented something that resonated with some of the people who have seen this drawing. But I don't have really much contact with her at all. She came in to, you know, for me to draw a portrait for her, and then I haven't really seen her since. I mean, I get a sense of her every now and again, but I don't really have any direct contact with her. Other people from our exoconscious group do. But, you know, it's interesting to see how there's what, 8 of us, Kevin, in that group, 8 or 9 of us, and we all have contact with members from the Council of Eight, depending on what it is that we're working on. So that's pretty interesting. Kevin, did you have anything else to add about Dee?
Yes, I think that's a good description, and that again, that epitomizes her character, who she is, and very interesting that night you met Aunt D in, I think, 2015, and I've got another friend, Rebecca Renfro, and I met her a few years ago, but in 2015 she had contact with Aunt D, which was quite fascinating, really. I met Rebecca Renfro a few years ago. I went to a MUFON meeting. It was a lecture on how the Earth was formed. It was very interesting. And I took my book with me, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, to give to the organizer. And she was very busy, so I handed it to one of her helpers who was assisting. And when she took hold of the book, she got a message. The message was, open the book at the end of the book and for confirmation for you. So she went to the back end of the book and opened it up, and there's a sketch there of Ort D. She said, I know these two. I've met them. I need to speak with Kevin. So she contacted me. We became friends. And her recently published book, which includes the Ort D meeting in 2015, Quantum Windows and Dimensions, a Christian woman's journey of faith and ET contact. So it shows that they're reaching out to others as well. Fascinating that I've had contact since the age of 8, but now they're reaching out to others. And within the, as Aurora said, within the exo conscious community, they're reaching out to many of us now. So clearly they spreading their wings, shall we say? No pun intended.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that we're all in Florida. We all live within a couple hours of each other, so go figure. I think we were all, drawn to this place for a reason. All right, the next one I drew was Ort. And again, this is how he feels to me. I have met Ort, I have seen him actually, and he has wavy hair. Can you see him? Am I sharing it correctly? Let me see. Hang on a second. There we go. All right. So his hair is wavier. He's got blonde hair. This is sort of monochromatic, but I wanted to capture how I felt when he came to see me in my meditation room when I was really, really down, so many years ago. And I captured the way he feels to me. And I've shown this drawing to other people, and a couple of them actually burst into tears, which was definitely not what I was expecting. I initially, this is a second portrait that I tried to draw of him, and he just would not sit still, for lack of a better word. He wanted me to try to draw a more realistic picture of him. I mean, you can totally tell the difference between this one and what I drew of D. It's like, an order of magnitude more realistic. And so he encouraged me to watch some videos on YouTube for how to draw a little bit more realistic. And he would not sit still for this portrait until I did that. And I was blown away by his eyes, the way his eyes came out. That's the part that just really pierces into my soul in the place where, he touched when I first saw him. Just recently, I had an experience where I actually got to see, like Kevin does, I got to see the Council of Eight. And if I had any doubt before that experience of whether or not these guys were real, that experience pretty much sealed it for me. They actually are real. And, I believed that they existed because there's confirmation and so on, from other people, from Kevin. But to actually see them, and realize, my gosh, that's you and you exist. That was really, it was neat. Yeah, I was so happy to see that to get that confirmation. And the Council of Eight to me is as real as my brother is, who lives in North Carolina. It's like I don't see them every day, but I know that they're there. Yeah.
This
Do you have
good.
anything else to add about Ord? You have a long relationship with Ord.
Yes, I think that you captured him again. When they first materialized in the bathroom, they were so attractive, both male and female. And he had a square jaw. He had the blue. The collar is exactly the same. There's a little darker blue that he was wearing, and you've got the blue eyes as well. But yeah, the depiction is there, and the swirls around it. Those are his frequencies, I suspect. So yeah,
Yeah.
very good depiction of him. Yeah, so it's just amazing artwork, although just amazing.
And to add to that, just like Aurora said, when I first saw them, I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, okay.
I
And
know,
I had,
right?
yeah, because I had seen your drawings, some of them, And have spoken to them many times, but they've never shown themselves to me, which is unusual. Usually I see.
Mm.
And then when they finally revealed themselves completely, I was like, oh, okay, there you are. Like,
Yeah, I know that's really
okay,
pretty neat.
it is. It
That's
is.
pretty neat. All right, the next one I drew, I believe, was Ra. Let me see if I can get him going here. Now, Ra had interesting reactions when I posted his drawing on Facebook. Let's see if I can share. Some people really loved him in the drawing, and other people not so much, and they said so. But in any case, Ra does not have a physical shape. He is not incarnated and doesn't incarnate anymore. He's just a energy, and I really tried to capture how he felt. I suspect that one of the more intense lifetimes that I've shared with him, and probably more than one, I suspect more than one, had to do with the Egyptian era, the ancient Egypt, the ancient Egyptian period. So he came through as a pharaoh. And the wings, I don't know why I had to draw wings. Kevin explained that to me, and I'm going to let him talk about that in a little bit. The falcon wings in the back. And then there was also some other feelings that I had about him that had to do with like maybe medieval or king. There was some other role that he played. I know that I've had several lifetimes with him, and I don't remember them specifically. If I meditate, I can bring them up, but I do, he feels very ancient Egyptian to me. Now, if you look over there on the left side of the screen, I don't know if you can see my mouse, there's a couple of scarabs down here near the bottom on the left. I was out on my balcony when I was drawing him, and I had my red pen, I had the cap off, and the gust of wind hit my notebook and it lifted the paper and, right onto my red pen. And oh my gosh, I was so upset. So I had to draw some scarabs and put them on there to cover up, the marks that where I messed up. But the responses that people had about Raw on Facebook, some of them, like I said, they were really just moved and resonated with him, where others were downright hostile. And because he's Anunnaki, I suspect there are people out there who have a certain perception and perspective of the Anunnaki based on, I think it's Zechariah Sitchin. Was he the one who translated? I think that's who it was. Yeah. So, you know, um, there were some comments that, it was just people basically, I think they were just angry at things that they had heard had happened. I have a different recollection and perspective on those events at that time, but everybody has their own perception of reality and the way that they want to perceive history. That everybody's version is just as valid as anybody else's. Yeah. So one thing that I do want to bring up is the earrings. He insisted on the earrings. I'm not quite sure why, but they were a big deal to him. And I know that Kevin has mentioned to me before that he does present to Kevin more like an Anunnaki, where that is how I saw him the first time, but I figured, no, I'm not going to draw him that way because he's not incarnated anymore. So I tried to stay away from actually drawing him in a physical form. Kevin, what do you have to add
Yeah,
about
again, a
Ra?
great description and portrait of him. And what's in there is him, really. When I see him as an ancient Egyptian, but I see him with wings. And he tells me that he was alive, he was in the physical in the ancient Egyptian times. He's now a ninth dimensional being, and he only comes down here or materializes if he wants to, if he's got something to do. But he resides in the ninth dimension. But interesting that you've got the wings in there, you've got the
Yeah.
ancient Egyptian, you've got these scarabs, everything to do with him. But when I see him, I see his face. he has curly hair and a long curly beard with these wings behind him. But very interesting how you captured all that. Just amazing. And I was giving a talk once down in Orlando when my book first came out. I was talking about it, and a lady came up to me afterwards who has the human exo-conscious abilities, psychic abilities, whatever you want to call them. And she said, Kevin, who was that man stood behind you while you were talking? I said, oh, I don't know. I didn't see anybody, didn't feel anybody. I said, can you describe him? And she described Ra. And at that time, I hadn't spoken about how he looked, what his features were, how I saw him. So really confirmation, but I always receive confirmation from somewhere in relation to confirming the information I get, because very often it's way out there. I always ask myself for confirmation. I know I got some more scientific information about the theory of everything. And I was just sat by my pool and I said, look, you just give me all this information. Can you show me a craft so I know the information's come from you? And a craft appeared immediately and flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So again, when you do that all your life and you have this contact, then you're confident and comfortable in not only your abilities, but the communication from this Council of Eight. Yes. So again, an excellent portrait, different to how I see him, but you've encompassed everything in there. Well, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and I think, and you and I have talked about it, and you confirmed that the big guy that Ort was referring to when he came to see me, 10 years ago, is Ra. I still don't know what he means by being pleased with my progress, but I'll take it. What can I say? Okay, the next one I drew is a blue avian, and her name is Arna. Let's see if I can get her going here. I would have to say that out of all the portraits that I've drawn, I am, I guess, as far as skill goes, happiest with this one because I love how the feathers came out. She is a blue avian, and Kevin knows her a little more. He tells a story about when he first met the Council of Eight when he was a little boy and he was terrified by Chica, and Arna came and and she comforted him. To me, she came across as this very chic, I almost want to say like a French diva kind of, very, she's a healer. She's just really, really direct. And I liked her a lot. Initially, I had drawn her nose, or her beak, I should say, whatever you want to call it. It's really her nose. I drew it all the way, the yellow part was all the way up between her eyes there. You can kind of see how it's slightly different color than her cheeks. And she came to see me one time when I was meditating, and she explained to me in no uncertain terms that that is not what her beak looks like or her nose looks like. And so I shortened it. And I did the best I could to, kind of cover up the mistake. But actually, I think it looks okay. It kind of makes it stand out a little more. But yeah, it was important that she showed me that's what she looked like. And then all around her in the pink, that's light language that she wanted me to write. I have no idea what it says, but I feel happy when I look at it. And other people have commented that they like it. The other symbols that are in the background, the squigglies, still just symbols that don't necessarily mean anything in particular. They just look, I don't know, I like the way I feel when I look at them. And I suspect, that's what light language does to some people. There are some really tiny, small, you can barely see them in white. There are some symbols, and those are, Kevin, you told me about these symbols, and I forget off the top of my head what they were. There's like 22 of them, a set of male and female universal laws, I think is how you described them. And so I tried to fit those in there. But yeah, I am very proud of how those feathers came out. Yeah, I really, really like all the detail there. Kevin, what do you know about Arna?
Okay, well, yeah, again, you've captured it, and the beak is perfect. I mean, she didn't tell me she was a blue avian, uh, so I haven't had confirmation of that. But if you look at the literature that's out there, they tend to say these birds type beings, the blue avians. But feathers were very small, very tight, and the beak you've got is just perfect. The ones I've seen what other people have drawn, they're more like a full beak, like you had initially, but then you amended it to this one. So it was perfect. And I know she's a great healer. She's empathic. You can ask her to help you heal if you have some ailments that you need some healing assistance with. But I know when I was introduced to Chica, I was a bit perturbed because he's a tall mantis being, even though he was sat down behind a table. I knew he was well over 6 feet tall, and I was like a large grasshopper or mantis beings that we have here. I have some in my yard occasionally. And I was quite perturbed by that. And she got up and she came and put her arm around me and comforted me because she felt the empathy of the fact that I was quite upset, not upset by Chica, but a bit perturbed by him. So yeah, but again, you captured the feathers, you captured the beak. Yeah, very good, excellent. And I think, yeah, and I forgot about the 22 universal laws now. I'd have to look them up. But yeah, I remember when you drew it, and I'd just been given these 22 universal laws for some reason, and then I tied it up to this one of Anna. So yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Aurora, those symbols that you say there's just, around and you don't know what that is healing symbols.
Oh,
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for
That's why you
saying
feel
that.
so good when you look at
Yeah.
them. Yes. Those are healing
Nice.
symbols and it's kind of like in comparison, like Reiki that has all these
Yeah, yeah,
symbols.
yeah.
It's the exact same thing, but it's in obviously light language symbols.
That's really neat. Well, thank you for saying that. I didn't know why I drew them. I just knew I liked them. So that's good. That's awesome. All right, the next one I drew was a tall white. Yes, she was the next one I drew. Her name is Arla. And I don't know if you say it with an O, like Orla or Arla with an A, but she is a bioengineer. I really had a difficult time connecting with her because, as I found out, her frequency is so high that if I stretched, my upper limit to basically just get a glimpse of her lower limit. And what I did with this one is I actually printed one of the portraits that Kevin had in his book and I enlarged it. And I thought, you know what, maybe if I start tracing her along, maybe I can connect with her. And sure enough, it happened. That's how I connected with her. And I realized, wow, her frequency is really, really high. Um, I had a really good time drawing this one too. I try to make it, the whole bioengineering, genetic engineering thing around her, these symbols, different people see different things, and it's always fascinating to hear what they're getting out of these images. But she is so she has a physical body, but her frequency is so high, to me, she almost felt translucent. It's like her hair is transparent and her eyes are supposed to be a little bit bigger, but I decided to just keep them like they are because, they're fine. They capture her essence. They really do. They really do. I haven't had contact with her except for drawing her, but I know that she's worked with Arla and one other person in our group, in our exoconscious group, on a project. Maybe Kevin, you can mention something about that.
yeah. Again, you've captured her essence, as it were. She had a very pale complexion, and her hair was translucent. You could actually see through it. In fact, it was hollow. Most unusual. But as you say, a biologist. I don't know a great deal about her, other than the fact that I was introduced to her when I was 14. I haven't had a great deal of contact with her. But you captured her essence. You captured her energy, her frequencies there. So yeah. And again, you got the complexion right. Very pale, gaunt, and the hair hiding the face. Perfect, really. Yes.
Yeah, when I posted her portrait on Facebook, there were a lot of people who said that they recognized her. So I thought that was pretty neat. It was so neat and fun to watch the comments in my posts as people were beginning to interact with one another over these beings because, they resonated with so many people that people would actually meet on my posts and have conversations about them. And that was I love that. I thought that's exactly what Ort told me was meant to happen. And it did. So that was definitely fun to see. Let's see. The next one I drew, I believe was Targ. Yeah. Now, we were talking earlier about the grays and rainbows. And I didn't know this until, Kevin shared this after I drew both Zark and Targ. Now, Targ is a tall gray, and he is, I believe, in charge of the security of the Council of Eight in our corner of the galaxy. He's a very, very busy guy. Um, he just sort of popped in and out. I had a hard time getting a hold of him. And the reason why I drew him kind of translucent is because he wasn't really there. He just sort of popped in and out of it seemed like portals. He was just in and out of portals, and the rainbow, that's supposed to represent the portals that he would come out of. And Kevin, you did tell me that rainbows do represent portals, and I had no idea some of this stuff that, after I drew it, Kevin talked about it and it just blew my mind how spot on it was. But yeah, he's more serious. He does not have the sense of humor that Zark does, that's for sure. They're quite different, even though they're both gray. And I drew him with a smile on his face just because I wanted him to look friendly. And I wanted people to be able to relate to him because I feel he's friendly. He's very warm. He just doesn't look it. He doesn't stick around long enough and, engage in conversations, or at least not with me anyway. But he is he's very sweet and very approachable and very kind. And he feels like somebody you can rely on. I guess maybe that's the security, I guess, the protector part of his personality or his job. What do you know about Targ, Kevin? I don't know
Yeah,
very much
again,
about him.
I think you covered most of it really. But yeah, I was surprised to hear that the galaxy was split into quadrants, and he was responsible for this quadrant of the galaxy. He's a bit like I got the impression of a military type, policeman
Yeah,
type,
right.
because of his position, his stature, and like you say, very stern. But you put a little smile on his face to negate that, really. So, but yeah, the rainbows are very important. I remember when I was contacted by Edgar Mitchell after he'd passed with a message for Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright. I was out with my dogs at the front of the house, and this beautiful rainbow appeared 180 degrees. And then Edgar Mitchell spoke to me with a message for Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright, who I hadn't heard of then. And I contacted Dr. Melanie Barton, a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, well, Kathleen Marden knows Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright. I'll arrange an introduction." So I had an introduction. I conveyed the message to Rebecca. It changed her life path. We became friends, and I joined her Exo Conscious community. So that was one time when the rainbows were used for portals. And another time, I woke up one morning and I just thought, oh, I'll reach out to the Council of Eight, see what they're doing. And I wasn't able to contact them. But I contacted a small craft. And as I said before, when I contact somebody, I get the telepathic communication, I get a visual screen, and I saw Tia. He's a small grey that I met when I was younger, and he's a pilot, a technician. He repairs and maintains his own craft. And he was flying a small craft transporting 7 or 8 greys. And I said to him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, we were close by. We deviated from our flight path, and we come to see where you live." So I had some other conversation, and then he said, "Right, we'll have to leave now," as I said, because we're off our designated flight path. So they left, and I could see inside the craft, I could see the 2 rows with the other greys that were transported. I say nothing unusual for me. But then I got up, I went out to meet my wife. I had a cup of coffee. My wife was having a cup of tea, and she said, "You missed a most beautiful rainbow this morning." I said, "Did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yes, I did." But then she said, "But you never guess what happened next. A craft appeared under the rainbow, about 500 feet from our house." And I said, "Did you get a picture?" She said, "Yes." It was a clear metallic disc that she saw. The photograph was a little blurred. But when I looked at the time on the photograph, it was exact same time on the clock in the bedroom when I was speaking telepathically to Tia. And that's how I get the confirmation. And then on another occasion, I've been down to Kathleen Marden's home, and I think I've done a channel over there. And I was driving back, and there was two beautiful rainbows. She lives in the same town as me. I thought, wow, look at them. And I thought, I wonder where they are. I wonder if I'll see where they are on my way home. I got home, they were over my house. So I know that they use them. I know that they use them on a regular basis. So never ignore a rainbow. If you see a rainbow,
Yeah.
ask a question. They are used for so yeah.
Now, you brought up Tia, and you and I had talked about this before. I had this really, really lucid dream a while back where I was with a short gray who was teaching me how to fly a UFO using my mind. And I remember how I understood that it was so important to have mastery over your mind so that you can actually focus. Because our thoughts, humans, we have a very chattery monkey mind, and you can't fly a UFO with your mind if you're in that state. So, yeah, I drew a picture of him too, but that was, I'm not sure where that is. I don't have that one up right now. But yeah, it's interesting how Kevin meets these beings and they also contact some of the rest of us. It's really, really fascinating. Okay, the next one is aside from Ort, Chica is my favorite. Now, Kevin was a little bit intimidated by Chica because he is very tall and he is an insect. By the way, they really don't like to be called bugs. I've learned that the hard way. Don't call them bugs. So he is a mantis being. Um, to me, he appeared in this color while I was basically watering my plants on my balcony. And for 30 minutes after he showed up, I was in this altered state of, I don't know where I was, but I was perceiving everything as my consciousness. Everything was me. I recognized how I created my own reality. But the way that he approached me was in my mind's eye. I could see this face, and his mandibles were open, like he was going to bite me. I mean, he looked really scary. But as I'm looking at that image, I am overwhelmed with the sense of feeling I'm loved. This being loves me. Now, I know that that could not have been my imagination because there is no way that I would have associated that image of, this giant insect about to bite me and, the feeling of love. It was absolutely amazing. I have learned, he's taught me so many things. I have had so many different encounters with him, and they're always very, very emotional for me. And I later found out that mantis beings are indeed quite emotional, and they're very telepathic. Most recently, I was at my meditation retreat, and while I was meditating, Chica popped into my mind, and he does that every now and again. And I was like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you." And at the end of that session, when I walked back to my room, right outside the door to my room was this giant praying mantis, a real one. I had never seen one in the wild before. And he was looking right at me. It was absolutely fascinating. I took a picture of him. I wanted to get closer, but I was a little afraid. He was a big insect. And I'm not too thrilled about, I'm working on it, but I'm not all that thrilled about insects. They kind of give me the creepy crawlies. Sorry, Chica. It is what it is. But yeah, I have a very, very close, downright intimate relationship with Chica, as well as other mantis beings. they seem to be predominant in my spiritual growth, at the moment. But yeah, Kevin, you see him completely differently than I do.
Yeah, different features. Yeah, just I see him just as extremely large mantis beings that we have here, exactly the same, with the big claws, the big arms and things. But he's a very old species. He's very wise and very well respected by the others on the Council of Eight. But I did ask him once. I did ask him if he was an entomologist, and he wasn't happy with that at all. He wasn't happy with that at all. You know, when you're a young child and you say something that's inappropriate, and your mother gives you a look. Well, that's what he did. I never mentioned it again, but I realised my mistake. But yeah, I don't have a great deal of contact with him. I can reach out to him if I want to. In fact, I did the other day. I wanted some information on something, so I reached out to him. I asked him for the information, and he gave me the information I was requested. So I still have contact with him. But yeah, I think they're all just fascinating beings, really, at the end of the day.
They really are. They really are. They're very different. At the very end, I'm going to show you a group portrait that I drew of them, but there's one more to share, and that is Shiva. Now, from what I understand, she is not, officially part of the Council of Eight. She is an angelic being who, I guess, sits at the side, Ra's side. Is that how it is, Kevin? I
Yeah, she
just,
sits on the right-hand side of and
yeah,
oversees the Council of Eight. That's what she tells me.
yeah. She is amazing. This drawing of her came with so many different symbols for so many different people. Usually, when I draw one of these beings, it's, one person is who gets the message. And by the way, Glenda,
Yeah.
she came in riding on the dragon that I drew for you. Not the purple one in the front, but the big one in the background.
Yes, they're very close.
Yes, they are. They are.
Yes.
It was amazing. I'd never seen that before. And she really stretched my bandwidth to try to understand everything that was going on that she was trying to communicate. I mean, just to give you an example, these little white circles on her
Mhm,
on her scarf that she has wrapped around her body, those are actually the star Sirius.
mhm,
Both Sirius A and Sirius B in all the different parallel realities that you can find them.
mhm,
And there were messages that went with that, as far as it was this little dog that had passed and he still had things to say. And one of these stars was for somebody whose little dog had passed away.
mhm,
There were others that I honestly cannot remember off the top of my head. Another thing that I remember is the scarf. Initially, I was just going to have a scarf, but she wanted it shaped like a whale tail. So I changed it to look like that. And she's
mhm,
just, this drawing really absolutely captures how she feels. Very feminine,
mhm,
very light, very floaty, very airy, and just absolutely beautiful beyond words.
mhm.
And yeah, she's got these humongous wings. At
She
least that's.
comes often when I see
Oh,
the
you've seen
dragon.
her too. Yeah.
Yes,
What
yes.
what do you recognize in this picture? Do you think I've got her
I think you
more or
got her.
less? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think you got her, and the pastel colors bring
Yeah.
the feminine essence out of out of her. So
Yeah. She's
definitely.
really a beautiful being.
Oh, and for those that don't know, Aurora did a picture of my essence as she saw it, and of course, as dragons. Uh,
I have that one. I can probably bring it up at the end if we have some
yes,
time,
sure, go
if you'd like me
ahead.
to.
Of course, of course.
Kevin, what do you have to add anything about Shiva?
Yes, I didn't meet Shiva originally when I was 14. I met her probably about 8 or 9 years ago. She introduced herself to me one morning when I woke up. And what is interesting, though, I introduced her to a friend of mine, Dr. Melanie Barton. And now Dr. Melanie Barton regularly does healing sessions with other people. She takes them into a healing chamber where Shiva heals people. And I had a few years ago, I had a couple of moles on my left elbow and one on my wrist. I had them a long time, just me getting a bit older. And then they started cracking and bleeding. So I looked them up, I Googled them, and it said there was skin melanoma. So I thought, well, I better go and get those removed. So that evening when I went to bed, I said to Shiva and the council of eight, I said, look, I've got these two melanoma on my left elbow and one on my right wrist. Can you remove them for me this evening? Because if not, I'll make an appointment to go and see my regular doctor in the morning. I went to bed, fell asleep, woke up in the morning. The two on my left elbow completely disappeared. Nothing there, nothing whatsoever. And on the right wrist, there was a red line around the periphery where it had been, and that disappeared by lunchtime. And I asked her to help with the healing with the dog once, and she did that too. So if you are suffering from things and you need some help and assistance, they will, if you ask. But she likes to be asked. She told me that when she first met. She won't just heal anybody. You have to ask. And that's the key with her. So that's,
Yeah. I think that's out of respect for our sovereignty.
Yes.
You know, and it's amazing to me how these beings who are just so evolved spiritually and otherwise will relate to us as equals. They don't want us to look up to them as if they're better than we are or they're here to save us. In fact, Ort made a big point about how we need to stand in our own power in order to be able to interact with these beings. They're not here to save us from ourselves. We have to take responsibility for ourselves, and that's really pretty remarkable. The last drawing, the last portrait I have of the Council of Eight is actually a group portrait that I did. Now, they are such, their personalities they have very distinct personalities. They have, there's a lot to them, and putting all of them in the same drawing was a little overwhelming. Now, I was not particularly happy with it because there seems to be too much going on, but everybody else I've shown it to really loved it. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to keep it. So I drew in the center here is Ra in the way that Kevin sees him, or closer to the way Kevin sees him. And then there's the rest of them. There's Chica over here, looking a little bit different than the other drawing that I have. You can see the two grays. I should have made Zark the smaller one and Targ the taller one, but that's just how it worked out. And then Ort and D are here in the front. I didn't have any room for Shiva, so she's the orb, the pastel orb up there near the top. But the empty seat that Ort is gesturing towards is an invitation. It's an open invitation to all humanity to come and join them at this table where, everybody is equal. They are all, working together in mutually beneficial, cooperative relationships. And it's a beautiful future if we accept it. The invitation is there. And it was actually Ort's idea to put that empty chair there. That was his idea. I wish I could take credit for it, but it was all him. And you can see the earth over there in the background. There's a lot going on in this drawing. I mean, I sit and look at it and there's all kinds of things popping up. Sometimes maybe too much stuff going on, but that's, if I had to really do them justice and present them in the way that they are, it's gonna be busy. There's a lot going on in this drawing. And Kevin and I, we are working together, along with the people from our exoconscious community. We're working on putting a book together, and this is going to be the cover. It's going to go on the cover of the book with essays that everybody's contributing to, and some of my artwork. Do you have anything else to add about the
No, I think
message?
that's very good. I mean, the vacant seat is very symbolic, and
Yeah.
they are reaching out to us. We are reaching out to them, and so we're just waiting. Really, we now have a planetary constitution through the exo conscious community, We have a protocol that the Council of Eight requested to receive them, and that's on the Exo Conscious Community website as well. So if you want to go on that and have a look, it's Exo Conscious Humans, don't forget the S.com, and you can go and see the planetary constitution. You can see the protocol that they require to invite them here. They're already saying through your channeled artwork, there's a vacant seat, come and join us. That could be for a group, it could be for individuals, it could be for different individuals. I don't know yet, but clearly they're working towards the reveal. And I know from my mission here, they've told me many times, is to help facilitate the reveal globally of their presence. And when they asked me to do that, I said, well, how will I do that? And they said, Kevin, by telling your story, your lifelong story of contact with us. So that's all I do now. But I've seen how that's grown. I've seen how other people, they are reaching out to other people as well. In fact, there's a book by Kathleen Marden called Forbidden Knowledge. And in that's Kathleen Marden. Probably a lot of people know Kathleen. I was asked to go down to a MUFON conference in Orlando, and I went down there, and I met at lunchtime. The canteen was full, and I was looking for a seat to eat my sandwich, and there's one seat on the table with two ladies. I asked if I could sit down, and one of the ladies was Dr. Melanie Barton. I believe she was the person I was there to meet. We started chatting. I met Denise Stoner at the conference, and then Melanie Barton introduced me to Kathleen Marden. And then I was invited to Kathleen Marden's home. She lives in the same town as me, 10 minutes away. And I was giving them some information. And Denise said, Kevin, do you know what you're doing? I said, no, what am I doing? She said, you're channeling information. I said, oh, I was just telling you what they've told me. No, you're channeling. I said, okay. So we arranged to meet at my home on a Saturday. And Melanie said, right, let's see if we can reach out to the group of extraterrestrials. So Melanie did a meditation. And then she went around the room and said, did anybody receive any information? Kathleen said no. Denise said no. Melanie didn't get any. And then Melanie asked me, she said, Kevin, did you get information? I said, no. She said, no, I didn't. She said, well, are you sure? I said, well, I didn't get any information, but there's a male stood in front of me to the right-hand side. I can feel his frequency. And Melanie said, who is it? I said, I don't know. She said, well, ask him. So I asked him, and it was Art. And he spoke through me as a channel for 40 minutes. That was the first time I had done a channel. I was exhausted. We then met once a month on a Saturday at my home over a 2-year period, asking the Council of Eight a dozen questions, which they answered. And these are normal questions that we would all answer. So then Kathleen Marden published the transcripts in this book, Forbidden Knowledge. So if you're interested in the questions and the answers that we asked the Council of Eight, they're in that book. And it's a fascinating read. So clearly they're reaching out, and I was directed to go down there, as I was directed to contact Rebecca Hardcastle via Edgar Mitchell. I can see a plan, I can see the story, I can see how it's unfolding, and the fact that the Exo Conscious community have all got contact, or I think most of them have got contact now with the Council of Eight or different members of the Council of Eight. I think it's just fascinating, really, how we are working towards the reveal globally of our star family's presence. So again,
Yeah.
exciting times ahead, Aurora.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The one time when we all went to Gary's house, Gary Bors, to do the C5, and you channeled Ort, and then you channeled Ra. That was unbelievable. I had never been close to someone who was channeling. And when it wasn't Kevin anymore, it was Ra. I remember Ra, he looked at Karen, who was sitting next to me, and then he looked at me like right in the eyes, and I could tell that was not Kevin. It was this other being. It just gave me the chills. I still get the chills just talking about it. It was intense. And Kevin is sitting there, and you could see he's got energy flowing through him. He was sweating. Um, he wasn't there. anymore. Kevin wasn't there. It was really remarkable to see someone channeling in the way that he did. That was an experience that I will never forget.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that channel's on the Exo Conscious Community website.
yeah.
I think
Hmm.
Rebecca uploaded that. So if you're interested in seeing that, you can do. And I mean, I think channeling is just fun. I was never interested in channeling. I'd heard about it, but just for it to happen to you and then be part of your journey is just amazing, really. But I'm just a messenger, really. I'm the go-between. But that's why they educated me in I can utilize consciousness as a conduit for communication, which is telepathy, travel, which is out of body travel usually, or bilocation. I can do that. Healing. I can ask for healing. I can also heal myself. Education. Well, they've educated me using consciousness, out of body traveling, taking me places, show me things, and then the creation and co-creation side of it was a latter part of it when I was given the equation for the void of consciousness. But that only came about because of Sperry Andrews, a leading scientist in consciousness. He contacted me and asked me to ask what they knew about the void. And within the explanation was the equation, which is on Zach's T-shirt. So because of that, we have an understanding of the creation and co-creation side of consciousness and the co-creation of timelines. So we can create the timeline we want. And the timeline that I would like would be for the reveal globally of our star family's presence. That is my preferred timeline. I was also contacted by the 38th generation medicine man of the Lakota people. I was invited to speak on their reservation a few years ago, and he introduced himself after he'd passed. I didn't know who he was at the time, but then his wife showed me a photograph, and it was exactly how I saw him, with his full headdress on, surrounded by light. And he contacted me recently and said that our indigenous ancestors have given permission for our star families to land their craft on their sacred land. And there's lots of sacred land here. In fact, Gary Bors's farm is sacred land. And I've spoken to Orton D by a radio where Dee spoke with her female voice. And then we had a conversation with the normal clicks and ticks that the radios do. But to have that direct contact, which we have, and Gary calls the craft in, Gary calls the orbs in. So we already have that contact with the telepathic communication, the radios. We asked to see the craft, to show the craft. The indigenous people's ancestors have given permission to land the craft. So we are moving towards the reveal. I see that now. It's just a matter of where and who is going to ask and where will it be. I don't know yet. I haven't been given that information, but there are many working towards it. I'm just one small piece in the huge jigsaw. So yeah, and these drawings, they're just icing on the cake for me because I've been thinking about it myself. I've had contact with them all my life. Only told my wife and my brother, and now I can talk about it to anybody because other people are in contact as well. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys,
definitely.
yeah.
One of the messages that I got from Ort and some of the other members of the Council of Eight, I think Chica mentioned this as well, is that the reveal is basically happening gradually like with these portraits that I drew. They're meant to put people or help put people in touch with their star families because they're reaching out to us and they will communicate telepathically to those of us who are open to the idea. And that way, it's more of a gradual disclosure, more of a gradual reveal, because a lot of people are not comfortable with there's a UFOs landing on the White House lawn all of a sudden. And my understanding is that it will be like seeing an old friend that you haven't seen in a long time. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I remember you. And it won't be this shock of a new beings showing up or new species showing up. They'll already be individuals that we already feel close to. And, like I said, our star families and friends.
You guys did wonderful.
It was
This
fun.
is so informative, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people. And by showing each of the drawing and explaining how you each connect with them, will bring and resonate with a lot of people who may never really understand. But seeing the drawings, like Kevin, you got confirmation of how they looked when you saw the drawings, and a lot of people may have seen them, may have uh, felt them, and you just bring it all together. So thank you for Aurora for allowing yourself to do that. You
It
know,
was fun. Terrifying at first to put my stuff out there on social media, but it was pretty amazing how people
yes,
respond. It was very encouraging.
yes, great. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here, and I also want to thank the audience. And remember to continue to watch us every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, but we do open the meeting at 7 p.m. so you can enjoy some music, background music over here. Susie loves to play. And so we could chat and talk and just discuss things. I want to thank everyone and come back again. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.